Here we go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Gustafson. I am the operating principal of the Worcester and Westboro Market Centers for Keller Williams in Massachusetts. I am very excited to be here tonight. This is a topic that I am very passionate about. I practiced in the field and still do actually, just for friends and family only. But I was an active practicing agent for over 14 years. I had a team at one point and was top producing in my county, and then ended up having the opportunity to become the operating principal of these two market centers. And it has been a wild, wonderful ride since December when that happened. And I am very excited to be here with you today. I'm also a licensed instructor in the state of Massachusetts. So I do teach other classes to real estate agents. I do enjoy telling stories. So pardon me if we get off track, because it's fun to share stories that happen. I am very excited to have the one and only Maggie McDowell starting us off tonight, who is then going to be substituted out mid-play with none other than Monica, who is going to come in and finish moderating for us this evening. So to keep us all on track, help me manage the chat and the Zoom, because that is not my forte, to be doing slides and then also managing chats. So they are going to help me out with that for any questions. I am going to ask if you can, please. It's a lot nicer to be talking to your lovely faces than a whole bunch of black screens with your names on them. So if your video is not on, if you are able to put it on, it's always appreciated. And then when you have a question, I have no issue during the class at all. This is an interactive session for you. So if you have a question or there's something you want to know, and you are getting, the sun is just going to come right down behind me right now through this very lovely
It's very
Venetian
heavenly.
blind
Yeah.
that is not clearly working this afternoon. But if you have any questions at all while we are doing this session, please feel free to raise your digital hand or just jump right in. I have no issue with that. In my notes, they do tell me that we are all grown-ups here, I believe, maybe some days, depending. You are allowed to get up and go use the restroom when you see fit. If you need to eat during this class, I have no issue with that either. It is 6 o'clock. I inhaled like a half of a sandwich 5 minutes ago. So I get you. I feel you wherever you're at in your day. Please feel free to do what you need to do. And I think those are all my major announcements. Maggie, did I miss anything?
Those are pretty good. I think you got it.
Look at that. She read the destructions, which is always important. Okay, so now we are going to share the screen. Magically, it will work. Maybe. Sometimes. And we are going to make that a slideshow. And poof, poof. We now have a slideshow. Excellent. All right. And now I can only see some of you. So again, please raise your hand. That's why Maggie is here to help. And we are going to start off with how we win with buyers. So for many of you, when you first start out in real estate, buyers tend to be the person, the people that you work with the most, because they are generally the people that you're going to run into for leads through your lead generation process. And then we are going to figure out how to shift the slides. There we go. Okay. So as you have probably seen already, and I'm hoping have become intimately involved with, our notices. So TCPA, it is a very real thing. You do need to be registered for the do not call list. You do need to check any of those numbers before you call them, and only be talking to people that want to talk with you. Our materials, again, depend upon, are used for teaching purposes only and hypothetical examples. Negotiating commissions. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question about this, and I know
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we've talked about it every single night, and you're like, girl, we're on like night 15. Why is right now this question coming up? But I've been doing a lot in command, and a lot of the folks who I have their email or their phone number, they gave it to me. So if they're on the do not contact, but I have a relationship with them, they said like, yes, you can send this to me as long as I have an unsubscribe. I can
Yes,
send it to
if
them,
they have
right?
asked you
Okay.
to contact them regarding real estate. So if you have your family's phone number in your phone and you start harassing them endlessly about your new real estate career, and they have not asked to be, and they are on the do not call list, that is not appropriate. So if you are talking to someone about real estate, they will have, they need to give you permission to solicit them for the real estate piece. Does that make sense?
It does, yes, yeah. So like
Okay.
my dad's like, oh, hey, I want to sell my house. I
That
want
would
to
be
know kind of
absolutely
what's
fine.
going on in the market. And I'm like, oh, I can set you up
Yes,
for neighborhood nurture. But I didn't check
correct.
TCPA to see, I didn't check the DNC rather to see first because he and I had a conversation. So I started
Correct.
sending him neighborhood nurture. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
one of the best practices that we teach in the market center is to make a note of that in command when you can. That's just a helpful best practice to say, had a conversation, consumer requested XYZ, sending to them, because then that covers, you know, that they requested it from you.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if you don't mind, that's exactly why when people sign up for your website, there's a very large disclaimer there, so that if the lead comes in, like they've given you permission. If you have open house sign-in sheets, you want to make sure that there is something there that with a little disclosure that says you're giving me permission to reach out to you regarding this. Like, you're fine as long as you have permission, you're good to go, and that's why we use command mail that has the unsubscribe button at the bottom, so we don't have to run into issues of contacting people when they don't want to be.
I love that you asked that question though. Thank you, because I go over this so many times and people just stare at me blankly. And then I had a DNC training in our office recently, and you know, I said to the agents, I'm like, they were like, well, this doesn't apply to me. I was like, really? And we went over all the ways that it does. And most people don't think it applies to them unless you are cold calling. And that is actually not true. I don't know about every state in New England, but in Massachusetts, to Maggie's point that she just said, it even applies to people that come to open houses. If they haven't explicitly said to you, yes, I would like you to contact me, you cannot necessarily use those sign-ins just ad hoc that like, oh, these are leads, I can contact them. They actually need to acknowledge that they are okay with you contacting them. And the fabulous Monica is signing on. Very exciting. Does that mean Maggie's signing off?
It does. It was lovely to see you all. I'm sure I'll see you at some other time. So
Thank you, Maggie. Have
You're
a great
welcome.
night. Welcome, Monica.
Greetings. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good. We're excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
All right. So we just had a question about that. Negotiating commissions. All of our commissions are fully negotiable, no matter where you are, what you're doing. Real estate commissions are not fixed ever. If you would like more information about that, you can definitely go to nar.realtor and you can get all sorts of information on how negotiable commissions can be. Fair housing, we of course do not discriminate with anybody that is included in any protected class. And again, the federal and the state laws differ. Your state laws can be more stringent and you do need to follow them. You cannot spam people just because you want to. And also the AI disclaimer is you have to be careful as to how you use AI and making sure that it is used in a compliant manner. Copyrights, there we go. All right, so you have made it. You are in the last sections talking about actual transactions and doing business that makes you money. Tonight, we are going to talk all about the buyers. So we are going to talk during the transaction piece about lead generation, lead follow-up, and then of course the management of the transaction itself, which does vary state by state. Oh, it does not like when I move my little thing. So today we are going to talk about our A buyers. Who are those people that we are cultivating that are hot to trot to purchase something? We're going to discuss what we go through to get the appointment, preparing for the buyer consultation, conducting the consultation, getting the buyer agreement signed, recaps and ahas. And then, of course, you are going to focus on your daily success system, which you are not going to do this evening because likely when we are all done this session, you are probably going to go to bed, would be my guess. I will be there shortly after we are done. So I go to bed very early. All right. So when I teach my classes, if there is a yellow slide, it means I'm not reading it. So would someone like to read this slide? This is where you participate.
I'll take it.
There we go. Thank you, Drew.
The right approach to close for a meeting is the only approach. Just ask for it. From Gary Keller.
What does that mean to anybody that's on the call? Any thoughts on that comment? No, we're having a Sarah just talk at us. Hi, Bruce. How are you? Go ahead.
Great. If you don't ask for the sale, you're not going to get the sale.
And oftentimes that is one of the biggest struggles for people, is to make sure that you're closing. I have done that throughout my career. I have had situations that, I actually had someone say to me one time, I'm ready to work with you. I'm just waiting for you to ask. And I was too busy selling the whole situation and was not picking up on the cues that they were ready to go. So this is a great night that we are going to chat a lot about that. One of the things that can really help with this stuff is, if you have not already or get a chance to, is any kind of personality profiles that you can take, whether it be a DISC profile, Clifton Strengths, Myers-Briggs. Keller offers the Keller Personality Assessment. It helps you, in my opinion, to understand more about you and how you work, and then also start diving into other people's personalities and how they work. That has really been instrumental for me over the years, becoming a better closer, becoming a better agent, becoming better at lead generation. So thank you for those answers, and thank you for reading that. So the first thing that we are going to start with is our A buyers. These are going to be the people that we think are looking, are ready to go, and we are going to talk about how to get them into A buyer status. So I'm going to look for some nodding heads that we have all seen this lead generation funnel picture before. I can't see all the nodding heads. Nodding heads. Okay, there we go. I got some nodding heads. Excellent, excellent. So when we are talking about our A buyers, we are going to be talking about the people that are ready to be followed up. So it's the difference between marketing to someone and prospecting with someone. So when we're following up with leads, these are people, to the question that was asked earlier about who can I call? They have raised their hand and said, yes, I am interested in you contacting me because I am interested in learning more about how to buy a house. So there are 7 steps to the service cycle. You're going to turn the leads into appointments. So we're going to focus on this quite a bit tonight, how to do that conversion easily. Then you're going to prepare for your buyer consultation. Your buyer consultation is not running out to a property and signing whatever mandatory state disclosure that you need to do on the trunk of a car while it's raining out and then running in and showing them a house. That is not a buyer consultation. I will remind you that during this process, you are the professional, and this is the time when it sets the stage for that. And I know at the beginning, it can be like, oh my God, I got a lead. They want to go see a house. I'm going to go out. I'm going to show them the house. There's some steps that should take place before that happens to help set the stage for what that relationship is going to look like. Because the number one thing is, you are helping this person with usually the biggest purchase of their entire adult lives. And we need to treat them like it is as important to them as it is in such a significant accomplishment for them, regardless of whether they've done it once or multiple times. One of the things that needs to be remembered is you might do this every day. The average buyer right now only changes properties every 10 years. And you'll notice that many second home purchases are going way up now. So we're seeing that some people are staying in their homes 25, 30 years before they're doing it. So they may have bought once 30 years ago. The market was very different 30 years ago than it is today. And when I say it was 30 years ago, that was 1995 for those of you who think 30 years ago was 1984.
I was doing the math.
Not.
Yep.
You're welcome. No problem. I'm here for you on that. All right. So after the preparing for the consultation, you will have the consultation. We are going to talk about the safety things that need to be done surrounding that. You are going to then help them find a home. That's where the matchmaking comes in. And then you're going to help walk them through the offer and negotiating the contract. Then you're going to get them to closing, and it never ends at the closing. It's the post-close systems that will set you up for a solid business in the years to come. And we're going to talk a bit about that this evening. So with that being said, they do like to throw these in just to see if anything has come up as an aha yet. So have I riveted anybody with any tidbits of knowledge you did not already know? Nothing. All right. I'll come up with better stories as we keep going. I promise. Okay. First step, getting the appointment. The key to converting to A buyers. Does anyone know the number, like one reason that people have frustration with real estate agents? The most common complaint, this usually comes up in the NAR Home Buyers and Sellers Survey every year, which, by the way, you can go to nar.realtor and download that survey if you have a realtor membership. Any idea? We've got a raised hand. Elizabeth, go for it.
That they don't respond to you quick enough.
Lack of response and lack of communication. It is actually astounding how many times I hear, I called someone and they did not get back to me. I sent in an inquiry and they did not get back to me. Generally, the leads, the people that have the highest rates of conversion, according to most studies, are those who respond the quickest. The timing has gotten shorter. Back when I started in the business 16 less years ago, you could get back to someone within a day. Now they want you to get back within minutes. You will generally get a response quicker if you text them. I have called people and emailed, gotten no response. I do a text, response comes back right away. So things to just keep in mind that the industry is constantly adapting, it's constantly changing. And you need to just kind of be aware as technologies change how people want to be communicated with. When you get on the phone with that lead, there's a couple of key things that you do. We all do it a little bit differently, but the goal is to always get as much information as possible to help you then build out a healthy contact in your database. So it's easier once you do it more, which is why I strongly suggest when we talk about the things that we're going to discuss tonight, taking it and practicing it with people around you. When I started in real estate, my partner, by the time I got done, could have given my listing and my buyer presentations as well as I did because I practiced them so many times. So practice them on other people you know, practice them on your friends, practice them on your family, practice with other agents in the office, practice these calls so that when you call a lead back and it's like, hi, I'm Sarah Gustafson from Keller Williams, returning your call. I got your request on 123 Main Street. How can I help you today? So usually we'll start with coming from a place of service to them first and letting them tell me their story. Most agents will tell you that are most successful. The reason they are successful is because they listen to their clients before they speak. So once you have the opportunity to hear what they're looking for, that is then your opportunity to gain more information. So ways I will do that is, oh, I understood you called today. Can I verify that this is your correct phone number? I also saw that the email came through in the request as well. Is this the correct email? And where are you moving from? And you can work through the conversation that way. During this conversation, you will also determine their motivation to buy so that you can speak to it. Again, when I ask the how can I help you today, I'm waiting to hear what are they looking for? Are they just looking for information? Because again, if you study personality profiles, a high D on the DISC profile is going to be, I just want answers. That's someone like me. I'm just very quick. I just need a quick answer to something. And I'm going to be about my merry way. I'm not usually interested in you selling me something. A high I on the profile is going to want to chat. They're going to want to hear all about it. They're very social, tend to be a very social personality. A high S is going to want to know what's happening with the property. They're more stable. They're going to, want to know how long has it been on the market? What's the motivation? When's the open house going to be? Things like that. Your high C's tend to be your engineers. So they're going to want your data. So it's very easy, generally, once you get going and you ask someone, how can I help you today? Within the first few words, you're going to know what they're looking for in that property and adapt your responses to it. So you want to determine their motivation.
If we're taking the personality quiz ourselves, How
Mhm.
are we going to know what our buy? I mean, we wouldn't have every buyer take a personality. Are we just going to know based off of the response how we should communicate with them?
When you learn more about yourself and your personality and do a little bit more research into the other styles, there are key things that'll come up. And anytime you get a chance to take a training or a session that deals with any type of personality, or negotiating classes will also teach a lot about different styles and personalities. That's just good stuff to have kind of in your toolbox that you can use as you go and you become more developed as an agent. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
All
that
right.
makes sense.
So I'm
The
sorry,
more
I
you
just
know,
can't
the
see
more you know.
everybody because you're all on the bottom of my screen. So you want to determine their motivation, right? So that you can speak to it. So when we get to that, then you're looking to set the appointment, the time, and the date. One of the ways that I used to do this is when someone called in, I'd say they were calling about 123 Main Street, and I would say, "Oh, that's great. And, how can I help you today?" And I'd let them go about their way. And then I would just start asking a few qualifying questions that I would weave into the conversation. I didn't start right up front, but there were two things I wanted to know. The first thing was, were they pre-approved or were they paying cash? That was one question I always wove into the conversation because that was going to determine where I was at on the appointment I was going to set. The second question I would ask is, just so I don't step on anybody's toes, have you been working with another agent? Is there someone else that's been helping you through this process? Just so I can make sure that I'm getting you the proper answers that you need. Again, I didn't come right out and say, are you working with an agent? Do you have a pre-approval? It was just woven into that conversation. And when I wove in the pre-approval part, and if they said, no, I don't have a pre-approval, then one of my responses would be, that's okay. Well, sometimes it's a little like putting the cart before the horse, because if we don't have a pre-approval and you absolutely fall in love with a house that you love right now, we may not be able to write an offer as quickly as the offers are going to be accepted. So we want to make sure that you are totally ready when you find the right house. So now do you have a lender that you want to work with, or are there some area lenders that I can refer you to? And if they went that way, then, and again, everyone handles this differently, do it how you see fit. I would have them get pre-approved before I was going to take my time to meet with them. Because I wanted to know if I'm taking the time to meet and work with qualified buyers, that they're qualified and ready to go, because I'm about to invest a lot of time and energy into them. And then my other question was, and if they were already pre-approved, that's when I moved to, okay, great. I would love the opportunity to set an appointment with you, have you come into my office so we can take about 45 minutes to an hour or so and just go over what this process is going to look like. Of course, there's a lot of state paperwork that we're going to have to do, and we'd rather do that now so that when we're out looking at houses, we can just be looking at houses and focusing on how beautiful it is for you and your goals versus us going over the paperwork when we're out in the field. So when you're having these conversations with people, you're looking to propose the win-win to them to get them into the appointment. And by getting them into the appointment, that's also going to help you solidify qualified A buyers that have already signed a buyer rep agreement with you and gone through that process. And we'll get into a little bit more about that. And again, when you're setting appointments, you're looking for them as soon as possible, not 4 weeks from now. Because again, think about your own motivation when you're looking at things. When you're ready to go, you're generally ready to go. But if you have a couple of days to think about it, you may move off in a different direction. They may run into somebody at the gym that shockingly will also be a real estate agent. So you want to be able to have the opportunity to obtain that lead as soon as possible. And one of Sarah's tips for setting appointments, always give them two options. As one of the best things I was taught when I started in real estate and started learning tactics for developing and closing leads is I would start with, oh, do mornings or afternoons work better for you? Because I will share with you, this business is not 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The only people that think that are us. If you manage and time block yourself and you start that early, I am not saying all the time. First 5 years, I worked very, very hard in this business and I worked a lot of hours to get to where I got to. But I started managing my time better as I got better at it. And I would say, oh, are you available in the mornings or the afternoons? I didn't give you a weekend option. Because what I have found over the years is most people these days work from home at some point during the week or have like a random afternoon off. It is actually freakish how much I cut down my evening and weekend appointments by asking that question. And they would say, oh, you know, afternoons work best. I would say, awesome. So I have Tuesday at 2 o'clock available or Wednesday at 4:30. Which one works best for you? That was how I started to control my schedule as an agent, is giving opportunities of times to people. Because when you think about it from another professional standpoint, you don't just roll up to your attorney and go, hey, yeah, I'll be there at 10 a.m. on Saturday. They're like, no. Your doctor's office, same thing. They're giving you the options for the appointments, not the other way around. So this is that opportunity that you have to really set yourself apart as the professional and start to lead the relationship and set yourself as the expert going down this road. Any questions on that before I go on? Okay. So 7, close to appointment tactics. We talked a little bit about this before. Again, it's what's in it for them. Oftentimes, I have found very few people are interested in my resume, exactly how many houses I've sold, exactly how many years in the business I've been in. I do share this because it's funny now, so many years later. One of my first listing appointments ever, by the time I finished it, I think I had done 2 others. When I finished it and went for the close with the client, they looked at me and they were like, do you own the company? And I was like, not yet. That was 16 years ago. They were interested in how I could help them sell their house that had been on the market for 180 days at that point, because that's what happened back in the day. You didn't sell houses in a weekend. It took a hot minute. So I was there explaining to them how I was going to be able to help them move on to this next part of their life. So when you're closing for the appointment, that's what you're there to do, is show how are you going to guide them through this process. The take back close, good Lord, they're getting into this one. That one I didn't know. Give me 1 second. Oh, this is the subtle creation of fear. Use this carefully. I lead with positivity. In my life, I believe if you operate from a mentality of abundance versus a mentality of scarcity, you will bring a lot more to you and attract a lot more to you in life. One of the take back closes, an example is, you know, when they're hesitating, it's, well, I would say this sometimes, is if we're going to go through this process, you're going to want a professional guiding you through it, because it's such a competitive market right now. So we're going to want to get you the edge, because oftentimes if you're an unrepresented buyer, by the time you figured out that the house is available, it may already be in a multiple offer situation or may already be under contract. So with me being able to help you, these are things that you can do. So this is, you know, and again, the trial close, that's when I would throw in, are you available on mornings or afternoons? When you do the assumptive closes, that's when I would switch to, so I have Tuesday at 4 or Thursday at 3 available. Do either one of those work for you? Right. And then when you're looking at the tie down, and again, I don't go with the negative connotations, but it's like, wouldn't it be great if we did this? Can't you? Wouldn't you? And then ask for the agreement with the consumer. So those are great tactics to get to the closing, but you look at how the conversation's going with the person first, and then you tailor your close to that. Do you have any questions about closing appointment tactics?
So
Before.
maybe, but this could be something that I practice more with confident conversations with my group. I had a appointment today that I didn't realize was an appointment. It was
Okay.
I'm trying to nurture my relationships like we've been talking about. And the question came up of, hey, I'm thinking I want to buy, but have you sold any property yet? So I guess which one of these tactics would you take to close the deal if you don't have, as like I have a few closings on the buyer side only, not on the seller side yet. I have a few listings. I've sold property from me being the person selling the property, but not of me as the agent, right? So which one of these tactics would you use earlier in your career with 5 to 10 buyer clients that you've previously had as opposed to 16 years?
My question for you is, and that is an excellent question, how did you handle it? If you don't mind sharing.
So I said I have closed on a few deals. I have also, partnered with Keller Williams. So I have a plethora of knowledge and a team behind me that's helped guiding me through this process. In addition to, the technologies that they offer, I have great visibility into homes coming on the market. And my corporate background has helped me with negotiations. I'm really good within the negotiation space as well. So while I have maybe a handful of deals that I myself has closed as an agent, I would be, really great at representing. And because I'm earlier in my career, I will absolutely be putting in a ton of effort to give you the best experience. Also, I would like your referral.
I
Is how
love
I
that.
say it.
Those are all great answers. And then what was their response?
Their response was, okay, do you know it? And I said, I do. As a matter of fact, I do. And I can set you up for neighborhood nurture. So I set them up for a neighborhood nurture.
So you still got there.
Signed
And
and
it may take you
thing.
another appointment to get them signed in, right?
Right.
Okay. Because to the point earlier that you mentioned, you didn't know that you were on an appointment today. And that is, so you handled it very well, given the situation that we're in. One of the techniques that I'm going to teach you tonight that is not on this slide is as soon as they asked, can you give me the exact question again? That they asked you, it was,
Yeah, they said, how many deals have you like, how are you going to help, how many deals have you closed essentially? Have you
Yep.
closed any deals yet?
Very rarely, and I will say I maybe have gotten that question twice in my entire career, but I'm going to teach you a technique right now that we call the porcupine. And the porcupine is one of my favorite things to use. And it's, why do you ask? So picture someone lobbing a giant porcupine at you with a question like that. And have to catch said porcupine, which is, how many deals have you closed? How are you going to help me? That comes at me. I just see a big giant porcupine and I'm like, how do I get the porcupine out of my hands as quickly as possible? And I toss it back to them with, why do you ask? Because oftentimes the first question is not the answer they're looking for. And I have found that throughout the entire transaction process, no matter what the questions are. So oftentimes when someone comes to me with the question first, and I just did it a little bit with you, right? Like I could have answered exactly what I thought you were asking me as soon as you asked it and said, this is how I would have handled it. By asking a few more questions, I was able to kind of porcupine back to you and then also find out, well, actually, you pretty much handled everything correctly given the situation that you were in. The only difference would have been, why do you ask? Because why it
That's
matters
great.
how many transactions you closed, I will say, collectively, we got a little soft spot right here right now. It's a little bit of an underbelly for us because we're newer, so we're a little sensitive. They may be coming at that from an entirely different angle. So you may go through that entire explanation for them to say, oh, well, what I meant to say was. And then you're like, I just spent 5 minutes
Right,
answering a question they
right.
didn't
Like,
want
do
an
you
answer to.
understand the process? And honestly,
Right.
when I was in 20 years in the corporate world, and that's by, that's how I would have handled it
Right.
in my prior career. But I think that because I'm so nervous, like, thank you for reminding me that some of the techniques that I use with clients in the corporate space can also come into play here.
I am going to say to all of you, and this is one of the things I love the most about this industry. I love this industry. Is it is so diverse with background. And for many of us, and if this is your first career on this call, I would love to see your hand raised. For many of us, this is our second, third, or fourth careers. Everything that we did prior to coming here is your greatest asset. And I'm hoping that you went over that when you were doing your value proposition at the beginning of this. Leverage in to what you did before you got here, because you are going to find you will build your base and your sphere on that, on those skills, on those talents. Because, and I apologize, I didn't catch your name because you're not on my screen, but the person who asked the question, what did you do before this? What was the industry in corporate?
I did product management. So I worked on the business side of developing software, and I worked with clients to try to sell our product.
Which was an IT-based product, because you said the word software.
Yes, it's an IT based. It's a IT based pharmacy product. Yep.
Look at that. And as someone who was asked to go find their bliss elsewhere from engineering school, we have two very different ways of walking through the world, right? So you have all this experience from an IT technical software standpoint that you're going to walk through a real estate transaction probably very differently than someone who may be coming to this career that was a teacher for 30 years. Leverage into that, because those are both going to benefit your clients just in different ways. So you use these techniques generally in any other positions that you've had. We're just calling them all out now because now we're in real estate. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else want to chime in? They're like, Sarah, keep moving. Okay, we're moving along. Oh, go ahead.
I want to say something.
Sure.
How can I explain this? I was a real estate assistant for a long time, and I just went, and now I'm going back and I got my license and all that. And I really like what you have said in the last few minutes.
Oh,
So I'm
well,
not
thank you.
totally new, but I'm kind of new with the license. So I like it a lot.
If nothing else, you all got a porcupine out of today. That is now your new visual. Throw a porcupine on your desk. That was one of my, I forgot where I picked that up, but it was actually, now I'm thinking about it, it was one of my good friends describing her daughter. She's like, oh, she's a little prickly. She's like a porcupine today. I just need to throw back. And I was like, that is one of the best examples I've ever heard. Thank you. All right. So, if the buyer has objections to the appointment, and again, you will get better at closing the appointments the more you do it. So what I'm going to say is truly practice this on your friends, your family, agents in your office. Sit down and have them call you and say, hi, I'm interested in 123 Main Street. And then see what you said. Do you start rambling off about everything about 123 Main Street? Or is your first question, how can I help you today? What would you like to know? What can I do for you? So when a buyer would call and say, I want to know XYZ, I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. What can I help you with about the property? And if it was something I could answer relatively easy, I did. And then I said, and then that's when I would be like, so I would just, like to get to know a little bit more about where are you at in this home buying process? Have you been pre-approved yet? Do you have your financials all in order? Because that's going to be so important should you want to put in an offer. Oh, well, no, I just want to go out and look at the house. Okay. that I am going to say is an option to you as to what you would like to do. My business model was you did not go look at a house with me unless you came to my office and did a buyer consultation with me. Because I'm sorry, I also came from corporate America. I am not going to waste my time. I run a business. This is not a hobby for me. It never was a hobby for me. So I am running a business and my time was very important to me. If you could not spend 45 minutes to an hour with me to discuss the biggest asset of your life, I was not about to spend 6 weekends running around showing houses with you in 90-degree heat. No, thank you. So how you get there is up to you. Now, if you're somebody that your business model is, yes, I am going to go out and do that, please have a safety protocol in place. But again, you want to try to get people to the appointment, because when you get to the appointment, then you can truly understand their motivation, how serious they are. So if they're objecting, ask more questions, empathize with it. And again, that's where your porcupine comes in. Whatever they're saying, ask a question back and then offer the solutions. How can I help you? And again, for me, it was really simple because the two things I was looking for, are you working with an agent? If they're like, no, then I'm like, okay, you know, I just, again, don't want to step on any toes, da, da, da. And then pre-approval or not, those were my two main things. Once I know you have a pre-approval, I'm just sitting there closing for the appointment. And if they're objecting at that point, then I'm really testing their motivation, saying, well, if you're not looking to have a buyer's agent, who's going to help you through this process? Who's going to guide you? Oh, well, I just go direct to the listing agent because, you know, they're going to get, you know, a better commission. Well, given the changes that happened last August 16th, 17th, over a year ago, that may not be true anymore. So that's something I'd be saying to a buyer. You know, if you go directly to the listing agent, also, you have to keep in mind their fiduciary obligation is to that seller, not to you. If this is your first home, wouldn't you want someone on your side that's just looking out for your interests? Oftentimes, as well, consumers don't understand how compensation works. They do not understand oftentimes how pre-approvals work. I was amazed when I started in the business to find out how many people thought you had to have 20% down to purchase a house. And we're just like, well, I didn't do a pre-approval because I don't have 20% yet. Well, there's a lot of programs and options out there. This is something you may want to consider. Why don't we go through that process? I don't know if my credit's good enough. Well, why don't we find out? Because oftentimes people may think their financial, and I see this with agents as well on the other side, people think their financial positions are often way worse than they actually are. And it's because of whatever their money stories are, they're afraid to actually open up and look at them. So it's like, if I don't know, then it's not there. It's getting them to knowing, to understand that once you know this, then you can make better educated decisions about how you want to go through this process. Because then truly, if you're not ready, well, that pre-approval process is going to tell you you're not ready, but it's also going to tell you what you can do to become ready. Bruce, go ahead.
When you're going through the questions, do you ask them like who the lending institution is and what type of loan that they're qualified for? Just so it gives you an idea of the housing you'll be showing?
I'll be very frank with you. On these calls, I generally do not get that in depth with it because I'm just trying to close for the appointment. So when I, you know, got pretty seasoned at this, I did these conversations in less than 10 minutes and had the appointment closed. Because my goal is to get them into my office. Because I know once I get them into my office, they're going to become my client. There's no question about it. So if they said, oh yeah, I'm pre-approved, I would just say, oh, that's awesome. Do you mind sharing with me the institution that you're using? Oh yes, I'm using XYZ Bank. Oh, that's great. Do you mind forwarding me over a copy of the pre-approval so that way I can take a look at it so that when we have our appointment, I'm making sure that I'm going to be pulling the properties that are applicable to the type of financing that you're going to be looking at. Right there, I did an assumptive close because I'm already assuming you're meeting with me because you're already pre-approved. And 90% of the time, people are like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll get that right off to you. I said, great. So then this is how I would get the email if I didn't have the email. Can I just, my name's super long and complicated if you all don't know. My name is Sarah Gustafson. How many times have I spelled that? G-U-S as in Sam, T as in Tom, A as in Apple, F as in Frank. Yeah. The whole thing. Hoped for a Smith. I got what I got. I stayed single. It's Gustafson now. But so with that, I would use that and say, oh, my email's really complicated. What's yours? And then read it back to them. So then I data collected on that. Right. So that is how I was able to get their email and then say, oh, that's awesome. So I'm going to shoot you a quick email. And then, oh yeah, by the way, what works best for you? Mornings, afternoons, 2 to 4, boom, got them locked in the appointment. Great. I'll send you an email confirmation with the appointment time, my address, what to expect, what to bring. And also if you could forward that pre-approval over to me, that'd be delightful. Thank you. A lot of time, we spend a lot of time talking on the phone when we don't necessarily need to be. Because you're trying to get them to the appointment, and the important appointment is where you're going to discuss all of the things as at the appointment. Did that help, Bruce? Maybe not. Okay. Other questions, thoughts? Okay. Objection handling is one of the best skills you can learn in real estate. So if you ever see negotiation classes, strategy classes on things like that, objection classes, absolutely take them. I still take them to this day because it's just nice to get refreshers on it. A lot of it, you know, if you practice it enough, it will become ingrained. I had like objections. You can AI, God bless y'all that you have that now. You can like Google real estate objections, and I'm sure Gemini will come up with them all. I used to practice that all the time by myself. I walked around and talked to myself a lot when I started in real estate every day. There was like 30 minutes every morning. I would just get up and run through different scenarios and how I would respond to them. And so they would ingrain in my head. So as they came up, I wasn't trying to think on the fly. And I will share, it may not seem like it tonight, I am actually an introvert. So it is very difficult for me to think of something on the fly. So I found it much easier to train myself to answer the most common questions or most common objections so that I had them ready to go. And now when somebody throws me a loop that I'm like, well, I don't have one for that, I will literally stand back and go, I never really thought about it that way. I will usually porcupine it back so I get a few minutes to collect myself, and then I can come up and develop my answer. Any ahas from this section? Oh, come on, give me something. The first
Porcupine.
one, I get it. Like I didn't even have a story yet.
Porcupine for sure. Use your strengths, understand, you know, the disc so that you understand how to talk to people. I think there was a lot of ahas in this one. So thank you for sharing all of your knowledge.
Yeah, I agree with Crystal. There was a lot of ahas. Leverage your prior career. That's definitely a good one.
Yeah, don't try to make yourself something you're not. Be you in real estate. Anybody else?
And the most important thing to be prepared to objections, because it's the most difficult part, because it's very stressful for newbies. Like if someone says no and aggressively no, you have to smile and you have to be professional, right? It's very difficult.
So I'm going to ask just because I get the sense there are a couple of you that may be more experienced than others, and I apologize. I don't know everyone's background tonight. But if you've been in real estate for a hot minute, has anybody ever had someone like outright aggressively say no to them? I can't see you, so if you are.
Well, so my ex-husband was a realtor, and
Okay.
so he was very aggressive. In fact,
Okay.
he handled the objections well. So he will do most of that, and I will do most of the office work. But yeah, there were people sometimes that they were abrupt, but he was able to handle them.
Yeah, I will say, I think it's going to depend upon styles and approaches. It's been very rare in my career that I've ever had people give me an aggressive no. Most of the time, I found people were seeking clarification because I was not necessarily explaining as clearly as I needed to be, or communicating as clearly as I needed to be, forgetting that the person on the other side is not as experienced as I am. The fact that you have a real estate license already makes you more experienced than the person you're talking to, because most other people you're going to talk to do not have a real estate license. So remembering that you're the expert in the situation helps you come in with a little bit of a different confidence level. Because I went through it too. And I mean, I remember starting and being so nervous and, what if they know more than I do? I had at that point in my life never personally bought or sold a house. I built one, but I had never bought or sold one. And I'm like, oh, I mean, they're going to know more than I do. And then I found out it was all in how you carried yourself, all in how you presented yourself. And I just approached it as I got into a mindset of, no, you know what? I'm the one with the license. I did all the things. I've taken the classes. I'm learning. So that's how I'm going into this. And once I was able to kind of shift that mindset for myself that, no, I'm the professional here. It just set a different energy and tone when I went in. You will get some people sometimes if they call in when you're doing leads and they just want a question, it'll be your high D people. They're just going to call in and they want the answer to the question. They are not interested in answering any of your other questions. They may just hang up on you. Don't get offended with that. Just move on to the next call, move on to the next lead. Or if you feel a little hurt because you got a soft spot that day, call a friend or family member that's going to tell you that you're the most fabulous person that they know. Get your confidence level back up, turn around and hit it again. But again, it'll be very rare in my experience that people will get aggressive with you, because remember, in this industry, they're coming to us because they want the information and knowledge we have. If they could get that on their own, they wouldn't continue to come to us. Any other questions, comments before we roll on? Okay.
Big aha. I think you
Go ahead,
called
Drew.
it presumptive close, I think was what you called it.
Oh, the assumptive close. Yeah.
Love that. That was great.
Those are awesome when you can start weaving them in. And one of the fun things, and again, it's why I stress take negotiation classes or objection handling classes. I recently was in a situation and they were an extremely skilled negotiator and closer. And I knew it going in. And it was funny at this point in my career because I was in a situation, it was a husband and a wife, and they were both very good. And they did all the tactics. They did the good cop, bad cop tactic. They did an assumptive close on me. They did the log rolling trade-off on something. And I was kind of laughing as it was happening because I was like, oh my God, this is literally everything I've ever learned about negotiating or closing in like one whole session. I wished I had filmed it because I would have used it for training. I mean, they were working me through. But it was awesome because, again, now 16 years later, I could see it all happening. And I knew how to keep myself in a position that I was not giving my ground in the situation. And again, it was all a win-win situation, but it was funny to see. It's funny to see somebody do it back to you. And what you'll start to notice once you learn these strategies and techniques, you'll see when other salespersons are doing it to you from other industries. I mean, I just ended up in a Terminix contract because the kid came to my door and he was so good at closing me. And I knew he was doing it the whole time. And I said to him, I'm like, you're amazing at this, but like, I don't normally do this. And I was giving him all my objections and he just kept bringing it back around and kept closing me. And I ended up getting a monthly contract for Terminix. I'm not really sure I still even need that, but I have it. So there's no ants in my house right now. I can tell you that. All right. Anything else from anybody? We're going to head along. Maybe, theoretically. There we go. Oh, it gets funny. Okay, so preparing for your buyer consultation. This is key. The first time you are doing the consultation should not be with the buyer. Okay, so preparing. You're going to want to confirm the appointment date and time. You will learn this lesson the hard way. You will assume because you have set an appointment with someone and you are so excited about it because you have a new client that they are also equally as excited about that appointment. And you will get everything ready and you will have your good packet and it'll be at the office. The screen will be set up. You are ready to welcome them. You got the little thing of water. You're set to go. And then 15 minutes in, you're checking your phone. You're like, I think it still works. And there's nothing. Learning how to confirm appointments early in the career sets the tone to make sure you don't waste your time. The habits that you start early are going to help you later. At the beginning, when you may not be as busy, it's like, oh, well, that's not a big deal. They missed the appointment. I'm at the office. I could still do X, Y, Z. At this point in my career, if someone stands me up for an appointment, like you're lucky to get an appointment with me ever again, because my days are very booked. I have a lot of priorities. So when I'm working with people, I take it very seriously that we're in agreement that that's happening. Now, this time I just do friends and family only. But that was something like, as I was, running my team and stuff a few years ago, we confirm the appointment days and times, because oftentimes you'll call the day before and be like, oh, I'm so excited to see you. We have our appointment on Tuesday at 4 o'clock at my office in Worcester at this location. You're going to come to this suite, take this elevator, because you'd be surprised at how many people will drive to another Keller Williams office and then call you and say, why are you not here? Oh, I didn't know you were going to that office, which I am not a part of. Now, one of the benefits, and this is one of the things I love about this brokerage, you can meet your clients in areas that it's convenient for them. So depending upon where you work in your market, I've had times where I've called other offices, like estates. I have this happen a lot. The estate may be in the territory that I am in, but the person may be, that's the executor or the buyer sometimes, they may be like, well, I work out in Boston and I'm in Worcester. And I'll say, oh, okay, but they're looking to move to Worcester. And I'm like, all right, well, we're going back and forth about the timing. Would it be more convenient if I met you a little bit closer to Boston? Why, yes, Sarah, it would be. Awesome. You know what? Let me call the Framingham office and see if they have some availability for me to book a conference room, and we can meet halfway for that appointment. Would that work better for you? Why, yes, it would. Oh my God. You'll have a buyer hook, line, and sinker after that. That's a client for life because you were willing to work around them. This one, you will learn the hard way one time. Ensure all the decision makers attend. Can anyone tell me who any additional decision makers may be in addition to the buyer that called you on the phone?
The
I am
spouse
open
and
for
or their
examples.
parents. So if the parents are the ones giving the down payment or money towards the down payment, they want say in what they are putting their money towards. So even though they may not be on the mortgage or like buying the house, so you think like the person and their spouse, well, the parent is going to gift them money, so they want to be included too.
Correct. And sometimes the parents enjoy being included even when they're not financially invested in the property. So that is a wonderful conversation to have up front. And I will set the stage with that. And again, with first-time homebuyers, it's a fun experience, I think, because you get the opportunity to share this really big life event with someone, and how you present yourself and how you set the stage for how this is going to look, which is why and I'm a big proponent of having the appointments in the office the first time, because many of our offices are quite lovely. You bring people into them, it sets the tone. Like they're working with a professional. This is a new thing. Like you see them straighten up a little bit, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're ready to buy a house today. So, I would ask that on the call. I'd say, we have the appointment, who are going to be the people involved in this purchase, anyone that we need to know about, because we want to make sure all decision makers are present, because here's the win for the client. We're going to go over a lot of forms that are, required by our state, and a lot of information that's going to be very applicable, so that when we're out looking at houses, we're just looking at houses. So I want to make sure everyone's there that night so that we can all hear the same thing at the same time, because we all have different personalities and we all process information a little bit differently. Because you'll also get partner and spouse situations. Oh, this is a good one. You got to get good at objection handling this one. I make all the decisions for us. I'll be there. I'll meet with you. Okay. But when you try to have a partner or a spouse explain the litany of documents that we provide, especially how compensation works, and that spouse was not present in that appointment, you will generally get a call back that says, yeah, no, we're not really interested in signing all these documents because, there's just a lot of questions about the compensation. You need everybody that's making the decision in the room at the same time. And I would sit there and I would objection handle that until I could get both people to commit to the appointment. When is a time that's good for you? If it, well, they work all week, weekends, we've got we're off soccer practice, we're doing it. I generally only worked pretty much Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. I was able to get my schedule there at one point. But then, I always had an exception. My exceptions just weren't the rule. So if I ended up in a really hard objection handling situation where the decision makers were tough to get together, if you need to meet me Sunday at 5 p.m., then I'm meeting you Sunday at 5 p.m. because it's important to me as the professional that all of the people that are involved in this very big financial decision are present to hear what we're about to go through. And I would get kind of that assertive and firm once the niceties weren't working. And it's no, they don't need to be there. I'll explain. No, thank you. Because what I know is when that happens, I'm no longer getting a signed contract at the end of my appointment. And that's what I'm aiming to do. So getting all the decision makers there. What will be interesting, so to the point that was made earlier about the parents. So if the parents did not attend, I would handle that during the consultation, that I would expect that as we go through this process, that we are all handling this as mature adults. And they would look at me and be like, yes. And I would say, awesome. And I know there are going to be a lot of other people in your life that are going to have an opinion on this situation. The first question I would ask them when they have the opinion is, are you a full-time real estate agent? And if their answer is no, just know my answer is yes. I do this all day, every day. I have nothing else to do. And I've been doing this for however long I've been doing this. I'm here to guide you through it. If anyone else has any advice or opinions, feel free to float them by me, and I'm happy to give you a professional opinion back. That was one of the ways I used to counter that. And then the end of the appointment, if they're like, oh my God, my parents really want to see it, you will generally find that one spouse is really excited about that and the other one is not so excited about that. And I would say, you know what, that's really cool. I think what we'll do is, because this is a really big decision for you both, is let's find the house that you love. Go through this process. I'll be your trusted advisor. I'm going to help you with anything you need regarding the real estate side of this transaction. And then once we get to P&S, if we want to arrange a time to potentially have the parents come out and look at it, we can absolutely see if we can make that available. Right? Because you get a parent at a home inspection. Good luck on keeping that deal together, because nothing is as good for the kids as it is. Right. So you want to have everybody there. You want to have your buyer guide. So you should have a buyer presentation ready to go. I am very excited about the partnership that Keller Williams is going to be having with Canva. So a lot of these things are going to be infinitely easier than when I was trying to create PowerPoints way back in the day and trying to put in animation that never quite worked. So we're going to, you have the opportunity now to create very clean presentations. Look for examples of presentations from people that you know. Remember, when you are completing your buyer guide, you're there to help them know more about the process. I promise you, they're not all that interested in you and how many years you've been doing it and the awards you've won and how many families you've helped and all that jazz. You can cover that in your confirmation email to them for the appointment. When you get to the appointment, make the appointment about the client. What do they want? What are they looking for? What are their dreams? What are their goals? And then you're going through how you can help them. Prepare your meeting space. Do not test your presentation for the first time the day you're giving it. Make sure you know how your laptop works. Make sure it's fully charged. Make sure it plugs into the things at the office. Make sure you have a backup of the presentation if it doesn't work somewhere else. The cloud has makes these things a lot easier. I can now, if it doesn't work on my phone, if it doesn't work on my laptop, I know I can plug into my stuff on my phone. But you want to make sure, run through these things again. Do it with somebody in your office. Make sure the meeting space is clean. It looks professional. It's ready to go. And review your lead sheet, which should be, if you are doing everything the same every single time, that you have a sheet. I used to have one, so I just printed out and I kept them by my desk. So any new person that called in, and again, I know it's old fashioned, I know it's paper, it just worked for me. It had, all the questions that we talked about earlier. So it had, their name, their phone number, when I talked to them, did they have something to sell? What towns were they looking in? Were they pre-approved? Did they have any? So I asked the same questions to every single person that called me. That's what helps protect you in fair housing situations. The more you can systematize this process, and it's the same every time for every person, no matter what. And I will say that during my career, I got to the point, I had very good friends hiring me to help them through the process. And they would laugh because it was professional Sarah and personal Sarah. And those two never met. And so when I was working with them in a professional capacity, if they're like, hey, I'm interested in buying a house, I'm like, you know what, that's awesome. And I just like you to know that I'm going to treat you with the same respect and level of professionalism that I would any other client. So please understand that although, yes, we could meet at your house and possibly share a cocktail after, that's not going to happen when we're going through a transaction together, because I want to make sure that you are getting all the information you need, just like any other client would. So we're going to have a consultation in my office, and I would do the same. I did the same consultation every time, every person. And when I teach classes, my buyer consultation, I was using the same jokes for so long and the same examples. And then I got repeat clients. And I had a client at one point, he looked at me, he's like, that's my story. And I'm like, yes, it is. And he's like, how many people have you saved from making that same mistake? I'm like, a lot at this point, because that was a pretty big mistake. And he goes, I know. But like, I gave the same presentation every single time, no matter who the people were. So those are things you want to work towards, is consistency. Okay. So, keeping it professional, it really sets the stage for you as to what's going forward. The top 10 service areas of the buyer value proposition. Now, again, these are the things that you want to touch upon in your presentation. So I used to do my presentation in 3 steps. My first step was like, hey, what does this whole process look like? Which was this slide right here. I would go over this in a nice fancy little slide deck, help them understand what is this purchase process going to entail. Then the second piece that I would go over is every single form that they would have to acknowledge. I would get them to sign as much as I possibly could in that appointment, including my buyer rep agreement. So we were all clear on the fees. And I would go over my contract to purchase or my offer form with them. I would go over the whole thing. So I would spend about 30 minutes going over all the forms that were required in the transaction, having them acknowledge them. Again, this is part of your assumptive close. Never led with the buyer agency contract. That was always the last form they signed, right? Because at that point, if I haven't proven my value, there's not even a point of having a discussion about my commission fee, right? So I would go through all my state mandated forms, and then I would spend time going over the entire offer. And I would say to them, if there's one form that you were going to read in this packet that I give you tonight after we are done, I want you to go home and I want you to read this contract to purchase to make sure you understand it. Because when we do this, it's going to move quickly, and we may be doing it electronically. And I want to make sure you understand this form. So again, throughout the whole presentation, I'm showing them value about why it's important that they have me with them to help them through this process. It's not about me. It's not about my resume. It's not about how much I've done. It's how can I help them? Okay. Again, the contents here, should also be in your Ignite manual as well. So things that I would do is like my welcome letter. One of the other things, I am going to share this here. I do not give out printed materials. I have not given out printed materials in years. Because what I found when you give out printed materials is, one, we kill a lot of trees for people to just throw things away eventually. Even though we put a lot of time and effort into it, your buyer is not going to frame your buyer presentation and save it. Okay. So what I started to do was combine a lot of this into a digital format. Some of it I would send ahead, but like my buyer presentation, I give that in the office on the screen as a presentation, because that's mine that I've developed, and that's my value proposition that separates me out from other agents. And I will say to you, I have enjoyed over my career at other points when people have interviewed other people, and I've been like, oh, I was in a competitive situation. And they were like, yes. And I was like, oh, do you happen to have any of the materials that they had? Because you're not going to need those, because we're working together now. And I was able to find out very easily what my competition was doing and what their value propositions were. So when you keep everything electronic, and again, the stuff I send out electronically is pretty benign. It's things, quite frankly, you should be seeing from anyone. So I had a welcome email that was systematized. And this is what I would say to you. If you ever find yourself doing something twice, you need a system. So I have a whole bank now of canned emails that I would just cut and paste in when I was sending out emails to confirm these appointments. That was a cut and paste. And I would bold the things I needed to change to remind myself so I didn't miss them. So I would bold the time and the day, and that's the only thing I would change, but they think it's bold, so I'm reminding them of the time and the day. But then I would just cut and paste those emails, put their name at the top, poof, send it out, right? So you start to look for ways to systematize your processes so you're not recreating the wheel every time you have an appointment. So that was where my welcome letter came in, was kind of with that confirmation email. And I would also include, at that point, I had a questionnaire for them that I included that would allow them to tell me about all the things that they were looking in their home. It was just like a fillable PDF that had a couple quick questions. You could do a Google sheet for it, but it was, you know, like, what are the main critical things? How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what's your price point? But then also, you know, like, what are absolute musts? And then what are your dreams? What's your ideal home? And I would let people write out what they actually were dreaming for in their homes. And it was so interesting when I would go back. I frankly never looked at those. And I would go back after they bought, and oftentimes not only did they get exactly what they needed, they also got exactly what they wanted, because they wrote down their goals without knowing that's what they did. And when you, as we teach you with yourselves in your own business about writing down your goals to create the life that you want, why wouldn't you help your clients do the same thing? And it's not necessarily sitting down and going, hi, we're going to write your housing goals today. But that's how I would do it, is, what are your needs? What are your wants? What are your must-haves? And what are your dreams? And oftentimes they would get all the way to their dreams. Sometimes I do have to say, give them a quick scan, because sometimes you'll get somebody that'll write something really snarky and on the dream part just to see if you actually read them. So that was always fun to call out in the consultation when we got there. I'm like, so I read down on the dreams that we're buying in Massachusetts, yet you would like an intercoastal water dock for the yacht. Yet we're looking in Worcester. And the guy or somebody would just be like, yeah, I just wanted to know if you read that. I'm like, well, that's cool, because one of my goals in life is to get a yacht. So we're on the same page. I'm with you. So that's the stuff I would send out again. In your, you know, again, in your presentation, these are the things that you should kind of have in there that you're touching on so that they can do it. Now, the introduction, project quality, the bio, I would send that in advance. So I kind of had my buyer presentation that talked all about the process. And then my background information, I had a PDF guide that I sent them with that confirmation email, so they could look at it at their leisure if they wanted to know more about me. But I'm just going to ask out loud, and someone will answer me. Where are they looking first to find out more about you before they ever get to this appointment?
Google, Facebook.
Social
Thank you.
media.
Online.
They've already researched you and all your bio and all your awards. They know all the things. You don't need to cover that again in your presentation. They're there to learn about how you can help them that day. But if you want to send another one, so tip there, make sure your bios are up to date. And please, for all the loves, use a headshot that actually looks like what you look like, not what you looked like in high school. Unless you just got out of high school and that's still applicable, then good for you. I'm not there at
Yeah.
this point.
Sarah, I don't know if
So,
you
yes.
saw, somebody's asked if we could go back a slide in the chat, they've asked.
The slides,
Is this the slide, Elizabeth?
Yes, give me a second. Thank you.
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? So this is the current Command buyer guide. You can actually access this and build it out of Command. I did this myself, even though I don't really service buyers anymore. And here's what I'm going to say. We are very excited for the Canva partnership that is going to be forthcoming sooner rather than later, hopefully. Until then, you do have the option through Command to set up a guide. What I'm going to say to you when you do this is, please read it. There is a lot of text. When I would give my presentations, I had the guides up. It's more of a point of reference for you to make sure you're covering the same thing every single time with every single client in every single presentation, right? So this is up on the screen. They're looking at it because they're like, oh, this is where all the things are. It's also helping your visual learners have something to look at because they don't want to just drone. They don't want to listen to you drone on for an hour. What I will say with these guides is you have to make sure that you read them and adjusted them to your individual markets and applicable state laws. Okay, so don't just can this and be like, oh, well, it was Keller Williams branded. I'm good to go. Actually go through, actually read it. I mean, I cut out whole pages on this that I was like, yeah, that's not applicable. I don't need this. That's discussed another place. So you want to get this down and then practice this with other humans before you're practicing it with your buyer. Because your appointments should get to a point. I was in a point because I learned this through many years, is that I would say to the buyer, I'm just looking for 45 minutes to an hour with you to discuss, you know, the process of purchasing a home because I want to make sure that you're ready. So when we're out looking at houses, we're just looking at houses. You don't have to ask questions about a lot of the stuff on the back end. When I was scheduling the appointment, I say, you know what though, I'm just going to budget an hour and a half for us because you know, you never know how much we're going to talk. I can get through my whole presentation in 45 minutes if I have a super high D personality that does not want me to give any fluff. If I have somebody that talks though, it was an hour and a half was the maximum I would do. So I would get through my whole presentation in an hour. I would leave enough of a buffer in there for chit chat, whatever, but I was never in a consultation with a client for longer than an hour and a half. So these were not 3-4 hour meetings. It was an hour and a half. Okay, here's where we are. Here's our next steps. Here's what we're doing. It was so nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to working with you and I cannot wait to help you in this process. Because when you start to get busier, you may be booking 3 or 4 consultations in a day. You can't be doing 2, 3, 4 hour consultations. You have to figure out how to tailor them to keep them succinct, and at the same time, help the buyers or the sellers that you're working with feel like they got enough time to express what they needed to express during that process. Other questions? Okay, so I'm going to take us through this. You know, again, it gives, so some of this stuff I'm going to say to you when you do it, you may want to pull some of this out. Like this part here, like this page about them finding their dream home. I would be pulling this out and putting it in my initial email PDF that I'm going to email them with my appointment confirmation. Because by the time I'm getting into the appointment in the office, I want to be having a discussion about tactical things with them that are going to help them feel like they're making progress on finding their home. And again, building their preference profile, this is something, again, I would separate out and I would be having this as a Google sheet at the beginning so they can answer these things before we get into the appointment. Same with the wish list. We talked about it a little bit earlier. These give you some really great questions. I don't know if you want to ask all these questions, but definitely, again, the thing is to create consistency, that you send the same thing to every person every time, even if they're your family. I mean, it was hysterical. My dad was a real estate agent many, many years ago. I did not get into the business because of him or because he had a business or anything of that nature. But it was funny because he does use me, oddly enough, to help him with his properties. Thank you. And we still go through the whole listing process every single time I do anything for him because the market's changed. So every time we're doing something, the market's changed, and I want to make sure he understands where we're at now, and he's not operating in a market that we were in 2 or 3 years ago when we had sold the last place. As many of you brought up, there are neighborhood insights that you can get into, and there are templates for this in Command as well. And again, I believe Canva is going to vault us into another level with these sorts of things. So when you get into the presentation itself, these are the things that you're going to touch upon in your actual consultation. So you're going through the process. Now, these little bullet points are super tiny. Read all of them because like I found a few of them that were not applicable to my market area or my state. So I had to readjust some of the language because these were presentations that were written to go nationally, and we don't deal with everything the same way here as we do across the nation. But this helped me make sure I hit on the key points every single time with everyone as to what this process was going to look like and what they could expect. Affiliated business disclosure. If you happen to have a mortgage company that works out of your office, then you're going to want to make sure that you have provided the appropriate RESPA disclosures that are necessary for that relationship. Again, your real value and real experience to something that was said earlier about, well, how many homes have you sold? I would include these in my PDF that I send up front, because if somebody, needs some data, okay, awesome. Well, you can give them the data of the brokerage. And again, that's when you're newer. I worked at a different company when I was newer, but I did something very similar is I would give the stats from my company or my office as the stats. I really, honestly, I think it was maybe twice in my career, someone looked at me point blank and was like, well, how many houses have you sold? And I porcupined that right back. Why do you ask? So keep that in mind. You provide this up front. It'll kind of eliminate a lot of that objection handling when you're getting into the appointment, because you're not having to sell yourself in the appointment. You're selling your value in the appointment. I just talked a lot really fast. So I'm going to give you all a minute to have a chat while I take another sip of water. Ahas. That's what this slide is for. Wonderful.
One aha was, so I like printing material, and I did like your comment on that's a way for other folks to do easy competitor analysis to see what your valid prop is. So have it be, on the computer, a digital
Very
view.
rare that they're going to forward your email with your PDFs on it. And if they did, I don't care, because, you can pull my resume offline. Like, there was nothing in my emails that went to people with, kind of that background information. That was all pretty much public anyway. So that was one thing I found. And so what I will say to make you feel better about the printed materials, I still do give everyone a folder. It was nothing fancy. I literally buy white folders at Staples. And even include the business cards at this point, but if you still do the business cards, you can throw it in there. Like, they don't need to be all branded and stuff, because again, you got to remember from the client side, what do they need? They don't need a branded folder. What they need is information on how to do this transaction. So what I would do is I would have a folder and it had a couple of sheets in it, and they were tips I learned from somebody that were nice. Is you could include like Keller Williams. You could include, again, some of the stuff that you put in that PDF email. You could include the statistics about the market. You could include your bio in there. I used to include the Fair Housing Pledge from NAR. I used to include the NAR Code of Ethics in there. So I was very upfront, like, you know, here, I follow ethical standards. This is what I'm here to do. Set myself apart a little bit, right? So it's just 4 just basic sheets of paper, no special cardstock, but I did color print them. And then on the left-hand side, that is where, as I went over all of the forms during the consultation, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, I had them physically wet sign everything. And then I made a copy of all of that. And then I put it all in the packet. And then I gave them that. So they still walk out the door with something that was not a significant investment for me, especially when I was starting out. I did not have a lot of marketing dollars. And I stayed with that system, even as I had more marketing dollars, and I spent my marketing dollars in client cultivation more so than I did on the presentation package. So they will still hire you with a white folder, I promise you, or whatever color folder you would like it to be. You can use a pink one, red one, whatever. But you know, if you want them to have something physical, tangible to walk away with, which I do suggest, what's the thing of value they need? All the documents they just acknowledged. Now I have a lot of people that do documents over electronic signature, and they're like, Sarah, I do everything electronically. That was just never my style, because I felt like by having them on paper and going over with them that in that appointment, it really set my tone with the client about the seriousness of what we're about to embark upon. And that was why I used that technique. Any other ahas?
Mine was you said if you do something twice, that means you need a system for it. I like that.
Yes, my friend, that will save you infinite amounts of time over your career. As soon as you see yourself write the same email twice, come up with a template for it so you can cut and paste it the next time. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, moving along. Conducting the consultation and getting the agreement signed. And I know we have 29 minutes to do this, but we've done a lot of it along our way here because that's how I construct. I'm sorry. So preparing for the consultation. This is a yellow slide, which means I don't read it. Someone go.
I am knowledgeable and caring and the best agent for these clients. They will appreciate my expertise and preparation and choose me to represent them as they buy a home.
When would you use the words on this slide?
Before the meeting. Pump yourself up.
Does anyone on this call do affirmations every day? If you would like to change your mindset, change your trajectory, and change what you attract quickly, do affirmations every single morning. I still do them. Every single day. I get up. They've changed over the years, depending upon what I'm going through. Different ones come through to me. It does not matter what other people think about you. No one's going to watch you. Say this wherever you need to. If you live with a lot of humans, find a closet in your house, find someplace dark, walk outside, say it in your car, write it down. Repeat these words to yourself every single day. When you start your day and when you end your day. And you will start to feel more confident when you are going into these appointments because you truly are the best person to help these people. You chose to get into this business for a reason. Remember the reason. You are rightful to be here. You deserve to be here. And you are going to change other people's lives by being here. Repeating this to yourself will help you get there faster. Do not take what we have the opportunity to do for granted. So, you are going to welcome the buyer. They are going to give you 3 minutes to do this. That buyer looks a little scared. Can we all agree the buyer looks scared? Person on the left, I'm assuming, is the agent. That also looks a little threatening. I'm going to say to you, read social cues when people come in. Work with that. They want you to role play the conversations on this, which is in your participant guide. We have not done any breakouts tonight. I don't think that's going to happen today. We just did a bit of a different way. So you are going to welcome them, go through, sorry, I just got myself hung up a little bit. This is where you can go through. It depends upon how much rapport building your clients are going to need. So this is that part when we were talking about the different personality profiles. If you meet someone like me, I'm a high D. I need about 10 seconds of rapport building. I just want to get going. If you meet a high I, they might be a little bit more chatty. They're going to want to tell you all the things about the house, all their dreams, all their goals, all those things. You meet an S, they may be a little more quiet and not necessarily as engaging. You meet a C, they're going to want to know exactly how long this is going to take. Can I get the heating bills for the house? What are all the details? What's my interest rate? All those things, right? So you want to kind of size that up during the rapport part of this conversation. This is where you can reference if you've had them fill out their needs and their want sheet in advance of the meeting. It saves a lot of time with this section because you can jump off of that sheet into this conversation pretty quickly. So again, that's the needs analysis. If you've sent this ahead of time, it helps speed up your buyer consultation quite a bit. I am so super excited that this slide deck is now in here. This is lovely. We do not write love letters, no matter how much. Here's the thing. Everyone's always looking for an edge because this is sales. There's an edge. We need an edge. We need something that makes us different. You need to make sure that the edges keep you in compliance with your state, local, and federal laws, and also with the policies of your company. Love letters, when they came out a number of years ago, I remember I said to my clients, the first time I got it, I did not present them when I had a seller client. I said, I got love letters. I said, I'm not going to present them because I said, this is just going to become a fair housing violation. Like, I know it is. There's no way it's not. And I said, so you can choose the offer. There's multiple offer situations. I said, you can choose the offer first that you're going to go with, and whatever offer it is, once you've acknowledged it, by the way, instead of saying signed, maybe say acknowledged. And instead of saying contracts, maybe say paperwork. Once you've acknowledged it, then I'm happy to share that letter with you afterwards, but I'm not going to do it before. I want you to make this decision based upon the merits of the offer, not based upon emotion. And then I was talking to an attorney one day at the Mass Association of Realtors. We're having this lovely conversation. And he goes, that's actually illegal. And I said, I'm sorry, excuse me? And he said, if that came as a part of the offer, you're legally bound to present it. And I said, well, that is absolutely asinine. I said, I am not buying into that. And I said, tell me another way. I said, why? Like, my seller should have an option to say no to something that could put them in a liable situation. And he said, yes. He said they could if they wrote it in to their listing agreement. And I said, delightful. We will start doing it. So we started doing that right away. I was not the only broker at the time that had a problem with this. And again, I don't know what happens in other states, but I can speak for Massachusetts. Shortly thereafter, the Mass Association of Realtors came out with a buyer letter form. And my particular market centers, they are mandatory. They're uploaded to every listing signed by our sellers saying we're not accepting letters. And all of our buyers acknowledge the paperwork as well that says, you know, we don't submit letters because they could potentially be a fair housing liability. So that's that. Any questions on that section? Haas, give me something.
So the love letter, that's like I'm submitting an offer and I'm also providing this letter as an emotional appeal as to why you should pick me. Is that what that is?
Yep. And then in that letter, I'm going to mention every protected class I am a part of.
Got it.
I am a veteran that immigrated from this country. I have 4 children. I also need assistance. Yeah. Every protected class is going to get it. One of my clients, they were hysterical. Like this was before the love letter thing happened. And they were like, we're going to walk up to the door and leave the letter with a picture of our family. And I said, you do that. I said, I will fire you. Hands down. I said, no way. No way. I said, because there is nothing good that comes out of that situation. And it was funny because again, I had a spouse that was very much looking for the angle. Because again, when you've written, the market is shifting, but you know, at that time, the clients we were working with, I mean, we were writing 8, 10, 15 offers. They are exhausted. They're frustrated and they're looking, going, how do I win? And they're looking for whatever angle they can use. It is your job as the professional to keep their morale up, keep their motivation up, and also keep them within the lines of the law while you're at it. Okay, getting the agreement signed. Oh, there's all sorts of things happening. If you would like to scan this and give your feedback about this class today, I take constructive criticism. It's okay. You can do that now. Good. Okay. KW Cares. I hope that you all know about KW Cares by now. This is a really amazing thing that we offer as a brokerage. I'm very proud of this. I don't know of any other company that does this, but we actually give back to our own. So even when you're starting, I know, believe me, I know, I was there. It just feels like you are hemorrhaging money some days. On a closing, even if you give $5 to KW Cares, you never know when you or your family may need this. And if you are the sole provider for your family and something happens to you, it did happen in one of our market centers in this region, and KW Cares was able to step in and help that family over the course of a couple of years, make sure that they could keep going. So consider, you can do it on each transaction. KW Next Gen is, wow, they put a lot of stuff in here for me tonight. This is for the next generation. We always continue to support the next generation because you have to be replacing yourself. And we are going to close for the agreement. And this looks like an activity that we are going to do is, so when you are wrapping up your buyer consultation, as I mentioned earlier, I did mine in 3 steps. And it was how I was able to keep the buyer engaged for the hour to hour and a half appointment. Because oftentimes they're coming in after working for 8 hours. They're tired, right? So another hour and a half with you droning on. Yep. They're like, okay, so what I would say is we're going to go over what this whole process looks like. So I break it up to 3 parts at the beginning for people. We're going to go over what the process looks like. Then we're going to go through all the paperwork and all the forms that are necessary. And then at the end, we're going to set you up on the search so that we can get you out of here knowing that you're going to be getting homes coming into your inbox that match what you're going to need to be looking for as soon as possible. Right? So that was the thing that kept them at the end. So they knew when they got back to that part, when you get to the paperwork, they're tired. When you get to this part, we're setting up the search. Now they're excited because their eyes light back up. Okay, did we have anything we're interested in? So what I used to do is I used to set them up on the search and then bring the search up in front of them and be like, were there any homes here that you were already stalking? Because you know they are. And they'll be like, yes, I was stalking 456 South Street. Great, pull up 456 South Street. So here's how it's going to appear when you get it. Here are the things you want to be looking for. You're definitely going to want to look to see if there are any disclosures that are public to you, things that might be going on with the property. I'd let them know how to look, like in our state, we do Title V's for septic systems. I let them know how to figure out if it had passed or failed. You know, I give them a little education so that when you're looking at houses, you can, you know, feel confident looking at these listings and kind of know what to look for to get the insider information that you might not have known about before. So that was how I would get them wrapped up that night and back on a positive note and excited as they're walking out of the office. So that, my friends, is our entire evening. So we have ahas. Do we have any ahas from that section? Any more questions about closing, paperwork, how you get them there? In the 17 minutes, anyone want me to cover how I've managed to get paid by my buyers for 16 years, regardless of what was in the MLS when we could once do that, and now without it?
Please, please, please.
Sure. The buyer consultation was the absolute last document I would have them sign at my appointment. Because at that point, I have now sent you an email confirming the appointment. I have sent you background information all about me. I have welcomed you into my professional office setting. I have now taken an hour of my time to go over what this process is going to look like to help you feel educated as we are out looking at homes. I have gone over all of the forms in detail so that we don't have to do paperwork when we are out looking at houses. All we're doing now is just writing offers. All that other paperwork is taken care of. So by the time I got to my buyer rep agreement, I am going through that as the last document. And I would go through, and again, it's Massachusetts is where I've been licensed primarily, but I would go through in that particular document, it goes through the buyer's duty, the realtor's duties to the client. It goes through the buyer's duties to the agent. I'm not positive about every state, but I do believe there's usually a section that talks about what the buyer's duties are back to you. And that's when I would do all the other paperwork, and I would get to that document, and I would say, I would look at them before I even went into it, and I would say, so are you feeling like you think you might want to work with me? And at that point, they're usually pretty tired, and they would laugh and they would go, yeah. I'm like, okay, because this next document we do, this is actually a contract that says that we're going to be working together for a hot minute. And I just want to make sure that we're both committed to the same thing. And they would be like, yeah, okay, cool. So these are my duties to you as an agent. This is what I'm going to provide. And I would go through that very quickly. These are your duties to me as a buyer. It means that you're going to tell me everything that's going on. There's no secrets here. So I would go through, you're not going to open new lines of credit. You are not going to deposit large amounts of unsourced cash into your bank account 2 days before closing from an international location. Everything I would do was an example of something that happened to me. And then I would continue through and say, you know, when we do the home inspection, we are there to just be looking at the property, not be renegotiating the deal. All those things. And then it would come to the compensation piece. And I very simply say, my compensation is X. There are a couple of ways this could potentially be paid. We may be able to write it in as a term of the offer. You may want your offer to be more attractive potentially than other people's offers. If you would like to do that, we can discuss if you would like to pay some of the compensation outside of the offer to make this amount up here. Because I'm going to be very frank with you, I don't do this as volunteer work. This is my actual full-time job. And then you are not going to pay me that amount in cash in a bag in a parking lot. That is actually all going to be notated clearly out on the settlement statement as part of your closing costs. Okay, good. So we have the options there. We will discuss more how you would like that to work once we get to the point that we are submitting an offer. And then I would move right on to the next section. I never pause to discuss my rate. I just kept going, and then okay, and I would sign first, and I would flip it around and go, here you go, you can acknowledge here. No problem. 16 years before all of this litigation, I had a buyer rep agreement with every single buyer I worked with, and I often got paid more than what was offered in MLS. And when attorneys at that time would say, no one charges more than what's offered in MLS, my clients would say back to them, we would have paid her more for the service she provided. It is how you approach the situation as the agent and what you determine your value is worth and why you are in this industry. I got out of corporate America because I was underpaid for many years systemically. That is a real thing. I actually had HR departments come to me because I didn't know how to negotiate for higher salaries at that time. I didn't know that was a thing. No one taught me that. And I had HR departments come to me and go, we're giving you a raise. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so wonderful. That's awesome. And they were like, yes, because you're not even making the minimum that we need to offer for this position as required. And I vowed when I got into real estate, that was never, ever going to happen again. Your commission is completely negotiable. You also have the ability to negotiate and set a rate for yourself and your business. My rate is consistent throughout my friends' families, no matter who I work with, no matter how many times, because I know my value and my proposition says that. But it's because I bring them through this whole process. By the time they're signing that buyer rep agreement, there's no question that they're going to work with me. I think less than 5 times. I'm talking maybe once or twice. I got to the end of it and they were like, I don't know. And I said, you know what? That is perfectly okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. I'm a pretty direct personality. I might not be the person you want to work with. Would you like me to refer you to someone else that may be a better fit for you given your style? You do that? Absolutely. This is meant to be an enjoyable experience for you. And I want you to be raving about what this process was like, not questioning your decision about who you worked with. I'm happy to refer you to a couple other agents I know, like, and trust. Done. Paid every time. No problem. Questions, comments, thoughts, and I will remind you that we are on a call in which we will not discuss actual commission numbers, apples, zebras, Brazil, whatever it might be. That is not a substitute for a commission percentage. Really, I laid that all out and we got nothing? Or did you all just fall asleep at the end?
I think it's inspiration. That's what it is.
Practice. And if any of you, find me. Yeah, I'm happy to share my contact information. I'm happy to throw it in the chat. If you ever need to role play that, if you get to a point, it's like, can I role play this? I'd be happy to role play that with you. Because when you know how to get to that point that you move through that agreement, I just never paused when I got to the compensation piece. Because my attorney doesn't really give me the opportunity to discuss what his rate is going to be when I'm doing negotiations with him. My doctors sure don't give me that opportunity. So I think about other professionals in my life that don't sit there and, have a lengthy discussion about their rates. People will pay your rate if you can prove your value. So ahas to achievement. I am going to ask that these 4 questions get answered somehow by one of you. So how has your thinking changed and what ideas or mindsets are new?
My new mindset, and we've talked about this already, but I feel like I don't want to be quiet because it's awkward. My new
Thank you.
mindset
It is awkward. I
is
appreciate that. And then it makes me question a little bit of who I am. And I got to go home and do extra affirmations tonight.
Mine was, I am kind of like the affirmation that we saw. I actually wrote it down, right? So I am knowledgeable, I am caring, I am the best agent, and the history that I have in my prior career has set me up to be successful in this one.
Absolutely. I love that. Awesome. All right. What do you feel differently about and what was meaningful for you today?
I feel
To
more
me,
confident. And what was meaningful was you sharing your knowledge. And I guess my first aha of the porcupine.
I love that. I heard someone else chiming in there. Who else do we have?
Oh, sorry. Good. Okay.
No, you were great, Crystal. Thank you. I appreciate you stepping up and sharing. I heard somebody else kind of jump in. So where were you at?
no, I was gonna say the same thing that Crystal. You gave me confidence. You reminded me everything that my ex used to do. So you boost my confidence today.
All right. You need that again. I'm here for you on that one. All right. Next, how will your behaviors be different going forward and what actions are you going to take?
I think I'll have more confidence, and actions that I'll take is try to, get some of the templates that we have for like the stuff on command and go through them, make them my own, and role play.
Of that. All right. And what tools, models, or systems are you going to use and how will they make you accountable? Last one, guys. I'm begging y'all. Come on. Someone who we haven't heard from in a minute. Go. Drew, you want to, I can feel it.
I liked it was early on you talked about having seeing if your family would call you and pretend to be a buyer and walk through that process. And I think that's a great good first step for sure. Something I'm gonna
Yeah.
try out.
All of that. Yeah, definitely. Friends, family, people that like you know, because if you flub up on a word, if it doesn't go quite as planned, if you stutter a little bit, they're going to give you the grace. And you just keep doing it till you get comfortable. And that's the thing is it takes time. I mean, and don't get analysis paralysis with this, okay? It doesn't need to be perfect the first time. Like my presentation got honed just over so many times of doing it, but it was because I gave the same thing every single time. So what I learned is like that was a lot of how I learned to objection handle, right? Because I learned the basic objection handling, but then I would be in a presentation, somebody would say something, I'm like, oh, I thought about that one. And so I would, recover in the appointment, but then afterwards I would go back and I would replay that again. And then I'd find someone in my office with a little bit more experience. And I'd say, you know what, I did my appointment today, and this was the objection I got. And I wasn't sure what to say, because again, introvert, not quick on that. And they would say, oh, this is how I would handle it. And I was like, oh. And so then I would practice that one. And then that just became part of the presentation. So I got to the point where the presentation was so dialed in, I never got an objection because I literally answered every question I've ever been asked in the presentation. I just found a way to weave it in and answer it. So by the time I finished, most people just look at me and they're like, any questions? And they're like, no, I feel like I should, but I don't. I'm like, cool, then I did my job tonight. Awesome. Let's go on to the next thing. So, I really appreciate you guys being here. And what's kind of funny is when we're talking about the 4 personalities, they're right here. The thinking is going to be your high D. The feeling, see how the words that they used. The feeling is going to be your high I's. The actions is going to be the S's, because it's going to talk to an S about how they can move quickly. And the tools is going to be your C's, who are more your engineer personalities. So when you start to watch words that people use, and you watch that with your clients too, you'll start to see clients will describe things of, I feel, I think, I am, I do, and you can pick up on those, and then it kind of tells you which path they go down. Now, do not go out and become an amateur psychologist tonight based on what I said and go home to whoever lives in the household with you and try to psychoanalyze them. Do not do that. That's not what you have permission for. This is to help you get to know yourself better, to then help you interact with your clients better in the future. So with that being said, I am happy to wrap up. Are there any other questions or comments, things that people want to say before we end this evening?
Can you
In
share a QR
terms-
code, please?
Oh, yep, share the QR
I'm
code.
sorry, say that again?
She has to
QR
share the
code.
QR code.
Oh, QR code. Yep. Give
I
me
do
1
have a
second.
question, and I'm not sure if I missed this and just didn't write it down, but you've talked about negotiation skills and training for negotiation, and I've read books like Never Split the Difference and things like that. But are there any books that you recommend outside of confident conversation training in order to help prepare for
Josh, you're
the
asking me now, so yeah, here's my introvert. Off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the best negotiating books I've read. Actually, no, I do know. Fierce Conversations is probably the best negotiation book I ever read. And I will tell you, it is fascinating how oftentimes when I used to think of negotiation, I was just in Veronica. And I'm so excited to see one of my own here. Veronica, happy to see you tonight. Is this the slide that you wanted? Oh, not that slide.
Does not work. The QR code does not work.
Oh, that's
Um,
sad. Okay. Then I don't know how to do that, is what I'm going to say. So
Anyway,
that's all
we
I
love
got.
you.
Maybe try
Thank
again.
you.
It worked for me.
No, it doesn't work for me. I tried like 10 times.
Oh, sad.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Monica,
I'm
can-
sorry.
Veronica.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm here.
okay, so I don't know how to solve that problem, Veronica, but maybe Monica will stay on and maybe we can solve it after. Nope, she left. We're by
Oh,
ourselves.
sorry.
We're on our own. I don't know how to do that.
That's because I
Okay.
took too long.
No, we're good. So, question, books, fierce conversations. Oftentimes we think of the only time that we negotiate is during a transaction. You start negotiating the moment the lead comes in. You start negotiating the moment that you talk to another co-broke, how you set the stage for it. You negotiate when you get up in the morning. It's already a negotiation. Are you going to go do the workout? Are you going to go say the affirmation? Are you going to go back to bed? Are you going to go to the beach today because it's nice out? Instead of calling the lead back, they're all negotiations. We negotiate all day. Fierce Conversations was probably one of the best books I ever read because at that point I was going through an incredibly challenging business relationship that I just you talk about a personality conflict. There was a personality conflict of epic proportions. And I was like, how do I move? And I was reading every book I could at the time. And Fierce Conversations was one that really helped me a lot be able to reframe how to look at things and pursue it more from a win-win. Any other questions? And I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes if people want to. I never mind doing that. And also I respect your time and realize that it's very late and I appreciate all of you taking time out of your day to be here today. So thank you. So I'll say goodbye, but if you want to hang out and chat with me, I'm here. Bye, Veronica.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Of course. Have a great night.
You too.